Welcome to the new Solarplaza webinar. Today we're comparing BESS revenues across the Central Eastern European markets. Very interesting, quite a lot of benchmarks and informative content today. So let me just quickly say how we'll organize the webinar today. We have three very interesting presentations, first by Philippos Falieros from Aurora Energy Research. Then we have Audrey Mindrikan and Emmanuel Manov from Toki, the trader and aggregator in the CEE region. And then the Q&A. So we also expect and look forward to your questions. I'll share a little bit more later how you can send them in, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar. Just a quick mention, probably for those of you who are new, Solarplaza, we're almost at 300 events now, all around the world, focusing on PV and BESS. So happy to be on the market for quite a lot now. We also recently launched our platform at solarplaza.com, where you can very directly in a straightforward manner look for your, for example, business partner, project opportunity, service, anything related to renewables, also specifically on our BESS board, which you see in the bottom left corner. So I encourage you to join and register your account at solarplaza.com. Technicalities. There is a question box where you can send your Q&A, and we'll address them for the speakers, and we'll have them addressed at the end of the webinar. Technical issues, my colleague with me is in the background, so you can send them in the chat box and have them fixed. And please give us 1 or 2 days afterwards. The slides from the webinar will be in your email inbox. So don't worry, you will receive them. I can't also miss out and forget to tell that today on the webinar, we're covering those 3 markets, so Poland, Romania, and Bulgaria. We also have 3 distinct events at Solarplaza. So you can access a discount code in order to register, and we sincerely hope to see you in Warsaw, Bucharest, and Sofia for our upcoming events dedicated to these markets, which of course focus both on PV and on storage. That said, enough from my end. What I will do now is I'll leave the stage to Philippos Falieros, who's advisory project lead at Aurora Energy Research. Aurora as consulting firm on renewables. So Philippos will today tell us about what are the revenue prospects, IRR returns, metrics, and so on for BESS projects. And of course, Philippos brings his knowledge from also structuring deals and also advising on RES portfolio acquisitions in this region. So Philippos, the stage is yours, and please guide us through your slides.
Hello everyone, and thanks a lot, Nicola, for the introduction. Today I would like to talk about revenue realities for battery storage in Central and Eastern Europe, focusing mainly on Romania, Bulgaria, and Poland. In the first part, let's say, I would like to compare key differences across the three markets. And in the second part, I will look on how volatility and bankability shape investment decisions. I'm Philippos Falieros, project leader on the Southeastern Europe for Aurora Energy Research. And for those who don't know Aurora Energy Research, we have a presence on 19 markets, 19 offices actually. We cover much more markets than that. We have more than 1,000 experts on board. But other than that, we also cover much more solutions, either software. We also forecast hydrogen, carbon, and much more. In Aurora, we enjoy to have full ownership and control of our analysis. And that's why we develop all our models in-house. Other than price forecasting models, we also develop dispatch simulation software. And for batteries, the model that we use for the last 8 or so years, constantly developed, however, is Kronos. This allows real-life cross-market trading simulations that can be used for project design optimization, transaction support, business case assessments. And while the software in principle remains the same, we recalibrate the trading behavior based on its market specifically, either on characteristics, on the size. Let's see now how different the three markets under discussion are. The key message from this slide is quite simple. Poland is currently the most mature market from a battery monetization perspective. It's the only one of the three markets that already has a capacity market, and it is also giving access to batteries in this. Capacity markets usually support a firm revenue floor on top of the wholesale and ancillary opportunities. All three markets have a day-ahead intraday trading that we also model in Kronos, but also have ancillary services. Access there is still uneven on the FCR, while we expect Romania to give access on batteries very soon. And AFRR and MFRR in Romania and Bulgaria are moving to that direction. But still in Bulgaria, we lack a clear framework that would allow batteries to participate in these markets. If we move now from market access to development, Bulgaria clearly stands out in the near short term. We expect deployment there to accelerate very rapidly, largely driven by investment support schemes and very cleverly designed actually support schemes that were not capped on a capacity level, but either on a budget level. And this utilized the strong investor appetite in this market. The important point is that is happening in a much smaller power market than Poland. We expect Bulgaria to reach around 50 terawatt hours of demand until 2030, while Poland will have more than 4 or 5 times that consumption. However, while Bulgaria may lead the installed capacity in the short term, saturation risks will also appear earlier, and that's also what we can explore later using our model Kronos. So on this slide, I would like to present some different revenue stacking, as we call them. It's the stack of different revenues across different markets, and with sensitivity on the entry date as well. This slide shows that time to market matters only by looking the IRRs, which is in the yellow boxes on the left side of the screen. In both Romania and Poland, the same battery can generate higher value if installed earlier. And that's because it's gaining the early movers advantage on the shallow markets of intraday and especially balancing capacity markets on the early years. However, in Bulgaria, assuming that a battery will have access on those markets, we expect that prices will be already at a level that reflects the opportunity cost of participating in those markets. And that's why we see that the main source of revenue is coming through energy arbitrage across different markets. So yeah, as to sum up, the early movers advantage still exists in Poland and Romania, but already much limited in Bulgaria. However, that has to do with standalone investments only. However, we see that most storage projects go to market on a collocated basis. That's because standalone batteries are not always the most attractive route to market, and collocation projects might have, let's say, smaller revenues compared to two standalone separate cases. But there are other savings, cost savings, either on capex level that come from grid connection and inverter cost savings, and in OpEx that has to do mostly with shared land, insurance, and operating costs. As a result, we expect IRRs to be around 1.5 to 2 percentage points higher on a collocated case. And that's the case across all three markets under discussion. On top of that, collocated projects also tend to perform much better on downside scenarios. Lenders usually focus on either commodity downside scenarios, it's the Aurora low scenarios we call it, where prices are much more flat, or another assessing also different risks such as higher battery penetration rates that would cannibalize prices and opportunities much sooner. In both cases, we see collocated projects performing much better. Off to the next slide. The next issue is volatility. Battery revenues can vary significantly from month to month, and that creates real financial challenge. Unlike many renewable assets, battery projects typically rely on stacked revenues from much more volatile markets. So investors face both revenue complexity and revenue volatility. On top of that, lenders also have to assess technical risks, and the challenge becomes even greater as projects scale up and require larger financial volumes. So if volatility is the problem, the obvious question would be, how do we create more stable and financeable cash flow? Poland, as we said, has already the capacity market, and this helps because it has a minimum guaranteed cash flow for multiple years. In the other markets, investors increasingly look at alternatives, such as contracting tools, for example, tolling agreements, day hedge spread swaps, and hybrid PPAs. Tolling agreements guarantee a fixed amount being driven across all available markets for batteries, and this amount is usually on a euro per megawatt basis. Then we have spread swaps, usually indexed on the day-ahead price curve. In principle, it's a guarantee of the delta between the high and the low price hours of that day, and that can be based on a 1 to 3 hour duration, depending on the duration of the battery. I will explain this a bit more further in a minute. Lastly, we have hybrid PPAs. It's more similar with the renewable PPAs that we used to see, especially when it is based on a collocated project and on a pay-as-produced basis. However, this agreement could also work as a hedging instrument from an owner perspective with a portfolio of different projects. And there we usually see fixed profile PPAs, hybrid PPAs, based on the aggregated output of two standalone projects, example of a battery and the photovoltaic. Now I would like to close with two main examples on that. The first is for tolling agreement. As discussed, tollings is the most simple form of guaranteeing a fixed revenue per megawatt for storage. And this also includes a cycling limit. So in this example we have here, the cycling limit is 1.5 cycles a day. In more complex, but also most common cases, we see this could also work as a floor and the profit sharing mechanism beyond this threshold level. However, we've seen that lenders usually discount heavily on debt sizing exercises that's the revenue coming from the profit sharing mechanism. However, this keeps the opportunity window of the investor still open if, in case the market comes more profitable than expected. And on the next one, back to the swaps. We've seen this gaining a lot of traction, this mechanism gaining a lot of traction, especially on markets that are more mature. In this case, you don't agree the level of profitability across all markets, but index a guaranteed profit based on the day-ahead spread of either 1, 2, 3 hours, depending on the battery. A key term on those contracts is also whether these hours are consecutive or are just the absolute maximum and minimum of each day. In both cases, the upside of more volatile intraday and balancing markets still remains to the investor, which is quite interesting. What we observe from our analysis is that this spread remains significant to support such investments. And even though we observe a steep decline on the first 10 years, that still remains around 50 to 60 euros, which can be a good basis for bankability. To add on that, these contracts also are more appealing to off-takers, especially those with a long exposure on PV generating assets, and are more suitable for shorter duration of agreements. We also see them around 1, 2, or 3 years. To conclude, the three markets we've looked at today are all attractive, but they are not attractive in the same way. Poland currently has the most mature and bankable revenue stack. Romania benefits from higher volatility on the balancing side. And Bulgaria shows very strong deployment momentum, but also faster saturation risk. Across all three, volatility remains a defining feature of battery revenues, which is why contracting solutions will be increasingly important to unlock financing and support the continued investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Philippos. Thank you very much. Of course, Philippos doesn't run away. You will stay also for the Q&A. So what we will do now is we will transfer kind of all this material to the gentleman of Toki, the aggregator and optimizer in the CEE region, which will tell us a bit more how basically all these realities are translated into the real world. Let us just see if we can pull up the slides again, because I think we have a slight issue which hopefully will be resolved, I think, very quickly, and it is resolved. So it is finally resolved. By the way, I see questions coming in, so please send them across. After Toki's presentation, we will be addressing them. So Aurel Mindrikan, country manager, who is leading Toki in the Romanian market, and Emmanuel Manov, who is the trade manager, so responsible also for the day-to-day operations and the trading activities of Toki. Gentlemen, the stage is yours, and please tell us a bit more. You just need, Aurel, your microphone on, and then it's all good.
Sorry. Yeah.
Perfect.
Hello to everybody. Thank you for introduction. And yeah, a little bit about us, Toki. We are, let's say, part of Renalfa Solar Pro Group. That it's a huge investment in renewable capacity across region. We are Toki, are part trading part, aggregator, optimizer, and also trader and supplier to this region. We are active in North Macedonia, Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary physically, and with cross-region wholesale activity. Like let's say a presentation of Romanian market, you hear about this from the future presenters. And I want to add that now Romania, it's let's say at a level of 500 megawatts installed in battery, and around 1,000 megawatt hour capacity, with projection to this to the end of this year to reach 2,000 megawatt hour in capacity, and in 5 years maybe 7,000 megawatt hours. We are also investing in this battery as Toki and Renalfa Solar Pro Group. Toki will its active investment in a battery standalone that will be 147 megawatt and 297 megawatt hour that will be put in operation later this year or earlier next year. And also Renalfa plus the Art Green Fund will invest hugely in this field in batteries, in BESS, with a total investment in 1,500 megawatts and more than 4,000 megawatt hour capacity. Turning to, let's say, the market and how this evolve now in Romania, we can see a lot of negative prices now with the solar activity, more and more pregnant negative hours in the middle of the day, and especially in legal free days. And here it's very much interesting in batteries, of course. There are also two kind of batteries, standalone and collocated battery. Mostly in Romania, we can see now collocated batteries that address, in principle, the imbalances for the assets that are collocated, but we'll have more and more standalone batteries that will move to help in ancillary services and also in time shifting and reducing the negative prices to move from the middle of the day to evening when there are very high prices for the electricity. What was presented by Filippo, it's very useful for all of us, but let's say in real life, we can see a lot of influence from regulation, from geopolitical. We can see right now this influencing a lot our market also. And also there are very high influence in from the weather, and this influence a lot the revenues from the batteries. What I want to add is that also for collocated battery, here we have some different, let's say, approach. There are collocated batteries that can only inject power in the grid, and this will address mostly the imbalance of the assets and let's say move this electricity from the middle of the day to the evening. And there are collocated batteries that are bidirectional and can also work very good in ancillary services and time shifting. I will let Emmanuel to add some things about BESS and our activity in Bulgaria. Thanks.
Thank you, Aurora. As Philip was mentioned, that Poland is a mature market due to its capacity, market integration, and auxiliary services. Unfortunately, I cannot say that Bulgaria is such a market. Bulgaria is not a mature market in this regard. It's an early stage, opportunity-driven market. The challenge now is shifting from not only building the BESS, but monetizing the BESS after you build it. So the situation right now in Bulgaria, in reality, is a bit different than we would like, or maybe we would think of a couple of years ago. What I mean is that as comparison to Romania, for example, where Aurora mentioned that they have 500 megs installed batteries, I can tell you that in our portfolio, we do have in Bulgaria more than 500 megs operational and operating on the market. So you see the difference. We as a company are managing more battery assets than the entire Romanian country, which is very challenging on one side and very exciting on another. The challenge here is that as we are not a mature market, the auxiliary services are non-existent besides MFRR. So the revenue stacks that we will talk about a bit later on are unfortunately not as modeled initially, because most of the models that we see on the market based on our experience up until now are driven by auxiliary services. More than half of the revenue stack is based on auxiliary services in a way. Even if it's MFRR only or the whole package of MFRR, AFRR, FCR, and capacity markets. So this means that after the project is built, the reality hits. And the reality is that if you want to monetize the asset, you need to be very active on the market. And by on the market, unfortunately for now, at least it's day-ahead, intraday, in some MFRR and balancing markets when and where applicable. This is the difference from the business model to the reality that's in the market right now. So maybe we can move on. So here, what can we say here is that as I briefly mentioned before, that the reality is a bit different than the business model. As mentioned, the single market revenue stack is not workable and working right now on the market. And single market revenue is because of the high percentage that's from the revenue given to the battery from the auxiliary services. That's one of the main bottlenecks that we see on the market right now for the batteries. The other big challenge we see, and we briefly touched upon, or at least Philippos briefly touched upon, is the grid access. Because for such build out and such big deployment that we see, and we are going to see by the end of the year in Bulgaria, we do lack the grid connectivity and grid flexibility that we need to operate fully this battery fleet that we'll have by the end of the year. As an example, because I know this will be interesting for some, I can tell you of a asset, a collocated asset with a big battery that at the end, at the connection point, has the connection point itself has a lot of other assets not belonging to us or to the group or to the investor, but other assets connected to the same connection point, grid connection point. And the TSO doesn't allow charge or discharge of several batteries at once because the grid cannot take it. So we do have this grid problem and grid reality, which we need to be fully aware of, because the revenue models largely and often ignore such grid constraints. Most of them put in their grid models that if you can charge with 100 megs, you charge it with 100 megs every day and every hour possible, which is a bit different than the reality that we are facing and what the market is facing right now. So here we need to have a bit more grid connectivity, which is on the system level itself. And we do need to take, for example, into consideration some of the projects that were financed with some of the subsidized programs in Bulgaria, because most of these projects have the obligation to put most of, if they're collocated, of course, not standalone assets, they need to take at least 75% of the energy from the asset itself, of the collocated asset, and only 25% of the other energy to be from the grid, which means that this again is a bottleneck for some periods during the year, because we saw even late this year, early this year, that there are periods in which the solar profile is more expensive than, for example, the off-peak hours, the hours during night. So if you are not able to fully utilize your asset, your battery asset, you won't be able to capture fully into the whole extent in which you want to operate this asset. You won't be able to monetize from the market at 100%. So this is something that's honestly very important for the optimization and management of such assets. Again, as collocation is by default in some cases viewed as solving this issue. Unfortunately, this is not fully the case, because even when a collocated asset is getting its capture profile higher than just a pure PV or pure wind or pure generation asset, we do need to take into consideration that there are a couple of different strategies in which we can utilize such a collocated asset, because the easiest thing to do is to do a quick shifting from the lowest to the highest hours. But if the asset itself has other possibilities, we need to, of course, have this in mind, because peak shaving or balancing of the asset itself with part of the battery are forms of optimization and revenues that are not fully explored by most of the investors and most of the assets themselves, because they do feel that these batteries that are collocated with generating assets need to do one or two things only, and this is one of the major reality checks, I would say, that is not as put in business plans overall. So here I would give back to Aurora just to see what's the situation in Romania in this regard.
Yeah, so in Romania, the main problem are the imbalances. The imbalances hurt a lot all the participants in the market, and we can see from time to time huge prices in balancing market. There are prices up to 10,000 RON that hurt all the people. So mainly the volatility of the price, and after that the imbalances. So the batteries are used hardly in ancillary service, in AFRR and MFRR, and also for time shifting. Also, the grid access it's very high utilized, and there are a lot of APRs. As now there are some regulation in discussion to align this and to, let's say, give more access to the grid to real investors, and to make, let's say, a little bit clear regulation in this field. There are also some projects that are investing in collocated batteries, but they realize that they cannot take electricity from the grid. They can only inject electricity in the grid, and of course there is the problem of very high level of prosumers that in some period of times the consumption is very low, and here also the batteries can help a lot and can move this prosumers activity to consumption, let's say, in batteries, and move after that the electricity to the shoulders of the day. What it's very interesting will be the interconnection in balancing market across Europe. We will see next year, maybe most probably, Romania, Hungary, and also Bulgaria will benefit of that, or will be part of that, Picasso and Mari. And here I will see a very high activity in ancillary services. This of course, depends a lot of interconnection and the available capacity between Romania, Hungary, and Romania, Bulgaria. But yeah, we have now, let's say, a limited competition in the ancillary market because there are not. We know very well there are two major players here, but with more and more batteries coming into grid, and with Bulgaria that it's coming with a huge capacity installed in battery, we'll see competition in this field. But I think we have to make room for questions. So I am stop here. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. Very clear. So let's go as promised to the Q&A session. We do have quite some questions already in. So let me address them, and of course for the audience, feel free to send more in the chat. So let's start with the first one. And of course, Filippo, Sarah, Emmanuel, feel free to take them, probably one for each, or probably some which are more specific. I'll address to one of you. So first one regards the amount of tolling and floor deals in Romania and Bulgaria. If you have seen a lot of them being signed or perhaps announced, what's the status on the market there?
Yeah, I can take this one. For Bulgaria, what we've seen up until now is that there are some deals and some hedges done by this way, some tolling and some tolling agreements, some floor and cap agreements, but most of the market is still on the phase of the greed phase, and not grid, but greed, because the markets are moving by fear and greed, and now we are in the greed phase. Everybody wants to capitalize as maximum as possible from the market, and tolling agreements or caps are not that often. Still, some floor agreements I've heard for several such agreements in Bulgaria at least.
Okay, thank you. Let's go maybe now. We have some questions which are specifically related to some of the countries here. So let's start to Romania. With regards to Romania, there are some potential changes relating to BESS regulations announced by the Prime Minister. And do you expect that these changing regulations will somewhat have an impact on BESS projects? And if so, what impact would you expect in Romania?
No, so mainly the regulation in Romania, I think I can see that are favorable to the batteries, and this because, as I mentioned, there is a need of ancillary services and of the activity in the balancing market. So I see now that Romanian authorities and the government are encourage a lot this BESS activity, especially the standalone battery, and we can see that there are a lot of projects in the market, and now these days we saw that there are state-owner producers that also are active in this, and of course there is this project of regulation with increasing the bank guarantees for the ATR, but more than that I don't see something negative. I see only positive regulation.
Okay, Okay, and let's focus now on both Bulgaria and Romania when it comes to bankable off-taking agreements. The question is, how do you view them in terms of availability? If you see that there is enough depth or liquidity in the market to sustain them, what's your general view and what do you see in those two markets? So for Bulgaria and Romania.
Happy to take this.
Go ahead.
So yeah, there is a lot of also to cover the previous question that was covered mainly by Emmanuel. We see a lot of discussion around tollings, spread swaps, hybrid PPAs. Not so many are signed yet, but that was also the case on PPAs. We know that it takes quite some time on negotiating different terms, and for combining batteries or batteries with renewables definitely increases the complexity on the terms of these contracts, and this takes time. Also, market hasn't found a balance yet. I like the example of the greedy off-takers. Definitely, it's a buyer's market for tollings and in hybrid PPAs. There's much more appetite on the sell side and the buy side. And off-takers, especially if they're optimizers and not consumers, sometimes they can get greedy because they have the negotiation power on their hands, negotiate very, very high profits on the revenue sharing area on tollings, or very low spreads if it's the spread shop. But our view is that the market will evolve. Now a lot of investments are moving forward with subsidy and other support schemes. Once more projects go merchant, we'll find more volume on these contracts, and my expectation is that we have a balance of the market. But we are now on the transition phase of this.
Okay, indeed. This Bankable is always a bit of a longer process. We have also one question in terms of the standpoint and the view of the operator, and basically which technical or contractual constraints do you think that limit most often a BESS from making the most and capturing those market opportunities? So once again, if you take the view of the operator, which technical or contractual constraints limits BESS from capturing those market opportunities, in your opinion?
I would say, based on what we've seen in the market right now, first it's the grid connectivity, as mentioned, because sometimes you just cannot capture the full potential of the market due to some constraints. The other one is still the lack of fast response of the asset itself. That's why, for example, here in Toki, we are using several, not only models, but several ways of operating BESS. Of course, we do have algo trading. Of course, we do have algo models that are executing and capturing the opportunities from the market as quickly as possible. And now we're building some in-house models and optimizers just to see where and what can we get on top of what we have right now.
Okay. So indeed, we see grid. It's kind of the perhaps one of the scarce there. One question relates also to the maybe a quick overview on the North Macedonian market. Also, since we are in that focusing a bit on those regions today, a question Well, probably both to Aurora and Toki, if you're working in and screening those markets, and how do you see the best market opportunity there in your view?
So let me maybe start, and Philippos can continue from there. But we do see potential for the Western Balkans. They are not only North Macedonia. There are such possibilities due to the market development itself there, and due to the fact that most of the time, yes, Serbia from next month will be a bit different story, but still North Macedonia, Montenegro, Albania, or wherever else in the Western Balkans, we see that there are no negative prices, and we all know that. And this limits the generation and the market opportunities that the participants there can obtain. What do I mean? Now, if the price is zero and you didn't if you're a generator, you didn't sell your production, now you need to stop your generator, right? You cannot do anything with the energy. If there is a battery on place, of course you can do the simplest thing. You can put this energy in the battery and shift it in the evening hours, and this will help the market itself to realize and capture more opportunities than they have now. So I see this as a possibility and, of course, opportunity.
Okay. Maybe Philippos, from your point of view, that was North Macedonian market.
Yes. So definitely those markets are will be attractive in the future. Now they're still quite behind in terms of market access for storage. However, and looking this on a fundamental basis, the combination of storage and PV can generate base load generations with an LCOE around 90. So this is very, very attractive, and because it also brings the flexibility needed in those markets, other than hydro or old open cycle or inefficient units. So that's what will drive, in my view, investments in the following years in these markets first, until we also have more advanced markets that will offer this revenue stacking opportunities, and we'll see at that stage maybe also standalone project. But until that point, my view is that we mainly see collocated projects.
Mainly collocated. Okay. So thanks for that. And maybe gentlemen, we could wrap up the webinar with one final question related to Romania. If we suddenly see a large number of prosumers that install batteries and inject energy in the grid during those peak hours, do you see a significant cannibalization peak and risk for existing BESS revenue models? Are those really being hurt if this thing happens?
Of course, that will be in the future, but for now, I cannot see such a problem. Now the problem is the lack of the batteries, not the high, let's say, investment in battery. For the prosumer, yeah, this will be the next step to have batteries also on the prosumer side to help the system and to let's say clear a little bit the problem of the consumption in the middle of the day when it's very sunny, and prosumer plus PVs are 7,000 megawatts, and the consumption in Romania at that time is sometimes 9,000, maximum 10,000, and Of course, with this having nuclear 1,400 megawatts and plus hydro, if it's some wind also, all the capacity it's over, and if there are not interconnection enough to go to export, we see a lot of negative prices and some assets that have to curtail because there is not need for this electricity.
So it's probably a problem also down the line in terms of cannibalization. Okay, so I think we, by the way, apologies, because we're also going towards towards the end of the webinar. So if we can answer all the questions, apologies to our audience, but we hope nevertheless that it was very very informative and helpful to get a bit of the market dynamic. So that said, I would like to thank our speakers who joined us today very much, and we also hope to see you in live at our Solarplaza upcoming events. Once again, let me remind you, Solarplaza Summit Poland, May the 12th, so around the corner in Warsaw. We have our summit in Romania on May 26th and wrapping up with Bulgaria on October 14th. So make sure to register, sign up, and network and get more content there. Once again, gentlemen, thanks again for joining us today, and also for our audience, and till the next one. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.